Hello and welcome to the latest episode of The Hex with Armand Kafai, John Arnold, myself, Daniel Robertson. Again, give us the like, give us a comment, let us know what you think about the show today. It helps us grow a lot. Growing our followers, guys. We're growing our subscribers. If you're not subscribed to the show, be sure to subscribe to the show. Like, what are you doing? Get notified on new episodes and follow Armand, Footy Analytics Musings on Substack. Follow John on Substack as well. Get CONCACAF and follow me here. That's where you can do a favor to me right here. So we have got 6 topics today. We're getting into transfers, going into MLS, intra-MLS transfers, going out of MLS. We have also got the USL Premier League has given us a structure here, and MLS has announced a new deal. Controversial, not controversial? What does it mean? Let's talk about it right now on the Hex. All right, a big inter-MLS transfer, cash for money. Armand, what do we call those cashfers? What's the
I think Bogart and Goss called them cash first, so I've just called them cash first because they're more fun than cash for player trade.
All right, well, we got a cash for St. Louis City, their first ever designated player, Joao Klauss. He is headed to the LA Galaxy for $2.3 million, 27 goals and 85 appearances. Armand, on the surface, obviously on the field, it makes perfect sense about this deal, but there's more to that deal for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's to fill Ricky Puig's SEI spot. So Ricky Puig is, he's out for the year. I think remessed up his knee again, so he's out for the
his
year.
ACL. Yeah.
Essentially, the Galaxy need a stopgap designated player in his spot that can also be removed from designated player slot as soon as Ricky Puig is back. Well, because Joao Klauss is only on a 1-year deal, and his deal actually ends at the end of 2026, his transfer fee will come off the books and would have to renegotiate a new contract with him. Therefore, his salary is actually within the below the designated player price, so in the TAM range. Therefore, that he wouldn't take a designated player spot next year if they renegotiated a new contract with him for the 2027-2028 season. For me,
it's a smart move for the Galaxy.
Is that it's a smart move, but it's a really limited player pool that they had. Like they couldn't go after any player because if it spread across multiple years, then they have to sell Peck, Puig, or Paintsel, and it'd also give up leverage on those guys too. Because guys, people across the league, not across the league, but across the world, kind of understand MLS rules. I had an MLS GM tell me that U22 players are actually a lot more expensive because of them understanding the rules, and hey, you need U22, we're going to charge you more because it's uncapped. So it would loosen their leverage internationally, but overall, like, this move, John, to me is super fascinating again because it's a really specific player, but also there's no guarantee that Joao Klauss resigns in the 2027-2028 year.
But there's also not necessarily any guarantee that they want him to, right? Like, you're saying, hey, you have to have this particular type of player. I view this as two teams that both feel like they're undoing wrongs that they've committed in the past. For St. Louis, I think they're saying, hey, we had a great first year. Most of that group is gone. New coach, new front office, and it's probably time to get some new faces around here, even in those marquee slots. And, for LA, I think they're saying last year we didn't put Ricky Puig on the season-ending injury list. We didn't free up that spot, even when nerds like Armand Kafai told us that we should. And now they're saying, whoops. Now, it's also the prognosis, right? It seems like this ACL tear came even later. They know that recovering from a second one is going to be that much more difficult. But to me, again, it's kind of the Galaxy, in a way, I think, wisely using a mechanism that they can use. And having learned as well from the difficulty when they were in cap hell last year after they won MLS Cup, triggered all those bonuses, and suddenly we're like, we got to get rid of everybody here. They did. They were bad. And now I think they're trying to take a step toward not being bad. And they should. I think this is a good move for both teams beyond what you're saying, which, Daniel, makes a lot of sense that Armand is saying, like, hey, like, now agents and foreign teams are understanding the mechanisms better to leverage. That's what happens to a club like Chivas or a club like Athletic, where you only play a certain type of players. Like, Mexican agents know that they can take a player to Chivas and get more out of them if they're desperate because their player pool is so much more limited. MLS clubs are obviously playing in that same water when it comes to using certain methods like a U22 spot and like this cash for player move.
Yeah, and it fits. I mean, the biggest, obviously, besides Ricky Puig, which, was always going to be a hole, the biggest hole in the Galaxy last year was a center forward. They were trying to fill that position all year, where they had the two wingers with Peck and Paintsel, but they were playing, bums, frankly, in the middle of the pitch. I mean, guys who were not MLS starting caliber. So you go get a guy like Joao Klauss, who's totally proven. You know what you're going to get out of him. It's going to be a little bit of a wild ride at times, but he fills up space in the middle that could open up that space in the wings. And I mean, straight into Champions Cup. I mean, he's a nice pickup for them that will give defenses trouble across the region. Armand, when we were talking about this in the group chat as well, you mentioned one other thing with David Ayala, who Inter Miami signed, and just kind of the trend of how, we see this in other leagues when now moves that is very common in Europe. I saw was it someone signed Guido Rodriguez in La Liga?
Signed him, I think.
Right. Yeah, they signed him because they need a player that will just help Valencia, that will help them stay promoted or stay up, right, in La Liga. They're not going to have him after 6 months from now. These win now moves, is that a little bit of a switch in MLS as well, where they don't know if they're going to be re-signing these guys?
Well, the thing that MLS just introduced like last week was that you now have unlimited cash first. So you have unlimited ways to bring in these guys now. And you look at a team like Miami, people were like, well, why would Portland do this? Miami was the only team, according to Tom Bogert's reporting, that said, hey, we don't care if this guy gives us an extension. We want him. We'll pay the money, whatever. Same with, the price that the Galaxy paid for Joao Klauss, if you're St. Louis, it's a no-brainer. You say yes to that. He's out of contract next year, and you get $2.37 million for him.
It's a lot of money.
That you can immediately convert into allocation money, which you wouldn't have been able to prior. That's you're not going to get that offer anywhere else.
That's the equivalent of an NBA team giving up a first-round pick for a player,
exactly.
Right? Because you're not going to get those. Obviously, in MLS, the draft doesn't really matter that much anymore. So, that's how in the NBA. That's how you get better, right?
But I think NBA is a good parallel because we're always talking about if this guy doesn't move at the trade deadline, he's going to go for free because we know his contract into this time. I think with this cash for expansion, you're seeing moves that are more like that, players in contract years being motivated, or teams knowing if I don't sell this guy now, it's going to go. It's an occupational hazard, quote unquote, of professional sports. That's why in Mexico you had the gentleman's agreement where they would make players sign longer deals when they were in the last year of a transfer, or say, we will not play you, or teams would not sign a player in that situation within the league. With MLS, you kind of have taken that problem out of, I don't want to screw over my fellow team or my fellow GM, because you say, like, hey, it's great for St. Louis to get this essentially expiring deal or have this deal expire and now have the access to these cap resources. Obviously, it's always a little different with cap leagues versus non, but I think that's, in some ways it feels like this is a overdue solution and an elegant one to a quote unquote problem that saw players getting stuck and teams also being stuck or having their hands tied when they needed to, replace a player that gets injured or even just find a new solution.
Big name moving within the league. Now we've got a big name moving out of the league, according to Tom Bogert's reporting. Alex Freeman, the U.S. men's national team breakout outside back of 2025, young player of the year for the U.S. men's national team, on the move from Orlando City to Villarreal for a deal that could go up to $7 million. Another player, John, who was out of contract after this season, but we're seeing more and more of these guys move earlier in, like, with 1 year left. Is this a good deal for both sides?
Yeah, it's a good move. It's a good move for Alex Freeman. It's a good move for Orlando. But, I think, like, again, we're kind of, it looks like he's going to make it out. I think that we see, like, again, this is something where teams just need to be open to this and understand, like, this is something that can happen. If you don't lock your players down to longer term deals, or players don't want to sign long-term deals because they want to have the possibility to move, this is going to be there. To me, it's something that comes along, Armand, with this idea that you're a selling league. And at some point, maybe MLS is going to shift, or maybe some teams already have. But even then, like, you're talking about Miami with David Ayala, like, they seem open to, like, moving him on after 1 year. They've had some young players they bring in from Argentina who they move on either back to Argentina or sometimes to Europe. I think even the power players in MLS are still open to some of these sales in a way that many other leagues in the Americas aren't. So to me, yeah, maybe, from a club side, you don't necessarily want to end up in this situation where you either sell now early or get stuck holding the bag when the player leaves. But Armand, that's the risk of being a selling league, and right now MLS is a selling league.
I agree with you, John. It's to me, we're seeing more and more of these situations, right? Like I think I mentioned in our group chat, Obed Vargas is now an example of this as such. Where I mean, the European League move is going to happen, or he's just going to be like, okay, I'll just wrap the rest of his contract and go somewhere else to the end of it. The players are kind of reestablishing their powers when in the CBA, like for free agents and stuff like that, there wasn't that much power for player movement. If you think about it, they're capped at a certain amount that they could make, and there's a certain like time threshold that they have as well. But if you look at that, then you look at Justin Hack as well too, where NYCFC people are ridiculing NYCFC for not giving them an extension. What if he's like, I don't want to sign an extension. I might go to Europe. He has leverage in this situation, and he went to the Galaxy. I think Alex Freeman is another example where, again, according to the reporting, it sounds like he rejected a U22 deal, which was sizably increase his deal to go to Europe and force this deal, which if you're Orlando, you have no leverage at that point.
But Daniel, this is also what the U.S. national team wants, right? Like we always talk about with like the Mexico national team. Well, if he plays at Villarreal, that's going to be better than playing week in, week out with Orlando City. And I think that like when you talk about what's the difference right now between the U.S. men's national team and the Canada men's national team in Mexico and their mid to long-term prospects, the difference is that the league, MLS, is open to selling these players at a young age. And that's what's happening with Freeman, right? I guess it's a risk. World Cup year. He might not play, but if he does, he's going to get more of a challenge trying to run down Kylian Mbappe than he would trying to run down Lionel Messi. No, but legitimately, it's just going to be stiffer competition week in, week out, and a new challenge that he's going to have to work through to develop.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, and the thing that comes to my mind, and kind of a theme of the show we're talking about this week, is league mechanisms and an evolving league mechanisms, and how MLS got it right with the cash for transfers. And this is a deal where I think back to when we look at the Tani Loasei deal of last summer, where it was terribly timed for Minnesota, but they had to sell him because of how much money they were getting. This isn't great timing for Orlando, but they have to sell him because he's out of contract. If his contract, let's say he had one more year and it was the summer right now, they would be getting much more money from teams than if it's in the winter. I think they would probably getting a few more $1 million, even if he still only had 1 year left on his deal. In the summer, there's going to be a lot more teams vying for him. MLS is a year and a half away from that, right? And this is another situation of like, okay, it's not a terrible deal for either. I think it's a good deal for every side. I think it's not are we really that far along in MLS now where we're turning our nose up at $7 million for an outside back? I don't think so. I think that's still a positive that we're even thinking, oh, maybe they didn't get as much as they could for this. But I think this is one where this is one of the last deals we will see that is a little bit of a victim, Armand, to MLS not having gone to the new calendar yet.
Agreed on all points there, and I think one of the things that's like really standing out, podcast where we all agree, is the fact that a lot of these MLS guys are translating pretty well to Europe. Of course. I mean, Tani's translated pretty well. Ali Ahmed at Norwich City has acclimated pretty well. Patrick Agyemang apparently has Premier League interest, which is exactly. Cucho's been excellent as well. So again, the league is going to get more and more eyes on this, and I think for these teams, there's like in Europe, they're saying, well, we can get these guys cheaper, and the players are also noticing, hey, we can also leave and force their hand a little bit as well, which I think is, again, like the Obed Vargas situation. Obed Vargas should not be in a contract year right now, in my opinion. No. But again, it's all in his power because he wants to move to Europe. He wants to move and do something different, and he has so much power now. He can just be like, well, if you're not going to transfer me a team I want and I don't agree with personal terms, I'm just going to write it out and you're going to get nothing out of it. So for me, like, again, it's more eyeballs on the league that's, I think, really great, especially with Agyemang, man. Agyemang was a guy that we kind of were all like, really? Like, this guy went for that much? You have to pay the money. And now it seems like he's killing the championship. So I think it's a big win for MLS, and I think, Daniel, you're right that the timing that now they're moving to this new schedule is perfect, especially with this renowned interest in these players.
Moving down a level, or maybe not down a level, USL is introducing their Premier League. As we know, in 2028, they're going to a promotion relegation system, and they announced today a few different mechanisms and a few different things about that league. So what is going to happen is they are aiming for, now they didn't say there would be, but they're aiming for 20 teams in the USL Premier Division, 20 teams in the USL Championship, and then more regional. And by the way, those are national, and then more regional. That's going to be called League One, which right now we have USL League Two, which is there's even some Dallas and Fort Worth teams, like Salina, I think, has a team now. RIP to the Sherman team. I don't know. They all kind of go all over the place. But the big thing here is 20 team first division, 20 team second division, and then a regional third division with promotion relegation. John, does this announcement change anything for you for the USL Premier League structure, or any thoughts there?
No, I think it's welcome that this is announced because I think there's been a lot of sort of not half information, just a lot of things that people have been running in one direction or the other, and we've been kind of waiting to see what the official word is. I think we've said before, this country is big enough for 40 teams outside of MLS. There are these markets that are not currently served by MLS that have huge populations,
like downtown Dallas.
Downtown Dallas, but like within our own backyard, we have Fort Worth. You could make an argument for like a Waco situation, Memphis, Phoenix, Sacramento. Still, like we can keep going on and on with mid-sized American cities. But legitimately, I think like the interest is there, and there's the opportunity to do that. I mean, I'm really interested. The thing that kind of drew my attention most was this regional idea that, can you sort of, I wrote this piece in 2020 that was like, is minor league soccer the new minor league baseball? Right. Seeing minor league baseball become more kind of federated, more like serving just the majors, that you're not really trying to serve the community. And there's still some of that, but like teams are constantly changing identities, which is fun and good. And like, yeah, I'll buy the hat when it's, the Flying Conchas or whatever. But there are these changes and the players don't stick around because they're just being fast tracked to the majors or not. But with soccer, you have that community connection. You can have a guy who, like, yeah, you want him to go to the top division, but like if he scored 10 goals for you last year and he was a bit of a fan favorite, you want to see him back the next year and the next year. And like there's that community fabric. So I think that's very interesting, especially these smaller communities. Yeah, I just there is opportunity there, and I think the announcement shows that they're sort of their heads on straight. They're going in the right direction. There's still a lot of unknown between now and 2028, but I think you can, USL can legitimately already point to almost this number of markets where they're relatively stable. I'd like to see more, but I think it's good.
Yeah, and it gave me optimism too. What I'm wondering now is, what's going to be the situation with, like, are they going to get a Champions Cup spot? Like, because Canadian Premier League has a Champions Cup spot. What are we going to see with that? How seriously is U.S. Soccer going to take it now as a first division, now that they seem to be getting their ducks in a row? And because if you do have a 20-team first division, honestly, I think the pro rel thing is going to be pretty cool. I don't think it's going to be a negative. I think it's going to be a positive. Those really small teams, is Salina going to like get promoted and say like, no, we don't want it? We see that in English soccer sometimes, where teams get promoted and then they can't afford to update their stadium, right? That's the big question for me, but I'm wondering, like, this is the first shoe to drop, but now how is U.S. Soccer going to take it? That's the big question in my mind.
To me, it's how is this all going to be like set up? I guess because
that's what they announced today.
Well, no, but like, okay, for example, you're in like Atletico Dallas playing in the championship in 2027. Mm-hmm. We're presuming that they're going to get the spot in the Premier, right? Sure. That's all going to be set up through, I guess I want to say more of like an expansion system to a degree, where it's like, okay, this go up, etc. Okay, what's gonna like? How does the second division get set up? How does this all set up happen? And I think we won't see the true fruits of the labor when it comes to the promotion relegation for like I think 4 or 5 years down the line, because the league has to get set up. You can't just like throw it out there.
No, totally. I agree with that. I think I think all this stuff is long term, but it's not pie in the sky. And I think that's what today is about. Like, this is real and this is happening. I would say, how is it going to get set up? The fact that the names are Premier, Championship, and League One, and that they're bringing Tony Scholes, who was the English Football League's chief football officer, over after he'll work through the summer and then come to USL to run this system. I don't. I mean, it's like interesting and balanced because you would never accuse most USL fans, owners, people around the league of being Euro snobs. But it's like pretty clear that they're trying to mimic what happens in England, specifically in England, not Italy, not Spain, not Mexico, not Argentina. It looks like they want to replicate what people do in England. And we know, Daniel, you were in a Fulham shirt. Like we know that people like that. That people have been asking for that. That people have not for you to wear a Fulham shirt, but for something that's more like an English model. And I think that's.
I mean, the Wrexham story is a perfect example of that, right?
That's a good point.
Well, they're Welsh.
That is a good point, though, the Wrexham story. But people also like to see the best players on the field too, right? And it's like, hey, FA Cup is fun for like 1 week, but then then you want to see the good players, right? So I mean, that's kind of the big question. One more transfer bit of news to talk through, not related to MLS. A player that did play in MLS for a little while over at FC Dallas, Ricardo Pepi, maybe the starting forward for the national team right now. That's probably something that we'll look into a lot in March. But he broke his arm. He's been out for a little bit for PSV, but he's been scoring in Champions League, doing a lot of goal scoring. There is a rumored move of a $38 million offer on the table from Fulham for Ricardo Pepi. Armand, would this move right now, 6 months before the World Cup, going to the Premier League, with a little bit of an injury, would this move be a good thing for Pepi right now?
I mean, it'd be good for a competitive sense, but the Dutch league is known to be a league where forwards like can score quite a bit, and like staying in the Dutch. Exactly. I mean, you can
never forget, man.
You can go through and like again, it's like notorious, even in like even people in the soccer community obviously talk about it quite a bit, and it's like you want to move from that situation where you're comfortable and you'll get minutes and etc. to a situation like Fulham where you're going to be competing with Raul Jimenez. That's going to be tough, man. That's going to be really tough. Competition breeds the best. Competition breeds the best.
He's competing right now. I mean, he's not the day in, day out forward. I hear what you're saying, but like, do you want a forward who is good at scoring goals in the Eredivisie where you're saying, hey, people score a lot of goals there? Or do you want a forward who can challenge himself against the best?
It's not exactly, do I want a forward? I'm saying this in his situation. Would I want him to go to Fulham? Absolutely.
I think if anything, the fact that like he is sitting out with an injury right now and has sat out with injury before and wasn't on the roster in 2022 and seemed quite frustrated about it, even though he was quite young. You gotta be brave. Like you just have to take this opportunity if it comes, man. Because there's only, look, anything can happen in this game. Anything can happen on the field. And these types of opportunities, yes, you'd like to think that Pepi gets this chance in the summer after the World Cup, or Pepi gets this chance in the winter after he scores a bunch of Champions League goals for PSV after a successful World Cup. But like, there's no guarantee that's going to happen. If this train is leaving the station, I think you got to get on it. It's a dream move, right? I mean, for a kid who grew up in Texas, watching highlights of Clint Dempsey, and it's not just about, it's Fulham, but like there's
top half Premier League team. They're playing really well. They've got a great coach. I mean, they could push for European
real
spot.
Quick, Daniel, I mean, okay, you got to fight with Raul Jimenez, but Pepi is a Mexican-American kid who grew up watching Liga MX. I think maybe he wants to learn from Raul, right? Like that to me is a selling point too. Yeah, you got to beat him out for time sometimes, but like I think this could be really great if it happens.
See, I kind of fall on the side of like I really wish this would just wait until the summer because I don't want uncertainty now.
That doesn't happen, man.
I understand making the move. If I'm Pepi, yes, I make the move, of course. Not to mention he'll get probably a boatload of money from it, and you don't know when that is going to come again. I get that. Speaking from a U.S. national team fan perspective, who wants the best Ricardo Pepi in the best form heading into June, this move scares me a little bit. Okay, so if Alex Freeman moves, Ricardo Pepi moves, that's two likely starters, right? On the national team, potentially. Freeman's in a mix for a starting spot. You can't tell me that he's not. He's maybe just a tick behind Dest, but the way that Pochettino likes playing that five at the back with the wingbacks, why would he not be? He's right on the fringe, right? So that's two starters that are potentially going to be moving roles.
I don't know that Pepi's your starter.
In the last, two guys that are fighting for starting spots that are expected to be contributors at the World Cup that are changing teams. I don't love that, and when you're Pepi, okay, PSV, I need to look at the Champions League standings and they'll be different on Wednesday, right? But
That's right.
we're talking about, moving to the Premier League, playing these big games. Okay, what if Fulham has a little bit of dip? They're right in that mid-table, and the last 10 games of their Premier League season don't really mean much. Okay, versus PSV, he could be playing in Champions League knockout for the next 2 months, okay? So I don't really agree that, there's going to be these in a small scale. There's going to be these bigger games. There's going to be a way bigger stage for Pepi. I don't really agree with that. Of course, monetary wise, billfold wise, you secure the bag. You make the move, of course. I don't think he's making the move only to secure the bag, obviously, but it just makes me a little nervous is all.
You think like an April 23rd hosting PEC's Wool or the April 11th trip to Sparta Rotterdam is going to be tougher than playing whatever Fulham's doing at that time?
So when Fulham's at home on a cold Wednesday night in April and PSV is playing Real Madrid in the Champions League quarterfinals, we're talking about like if we're doing hypotheticals here, let's and don't discount Go Ahead Eagles, okay? I like the Go Ahead Eagles. John, El Tree got 2 W's last weekend in Panama and Bolivia. 1-0 wins. I didn't watch them live, but I caught the highlights. Not bad performances for Mexico overall. What did we learn?
I mean, these were not great games. Mexico did end their skid. They hadn't won since the final of the Gold Cup, which is a bit of a problem.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's only 6 games, but they're all friendlies, and they were good teams. But the U.S. played basically the same teams during that stretch, and like that game against Uruguay, like Mexico couldn't do it, and the U.S. smoked them. So, what do we learn? I think the biggest concern for Mexico right now, as I wrote in the newsletter, is Edson Alvarez's ankle. He came back for Fenerbahce and then posted an Instagram story that basically said, "Don't know what happened. Thought I was going to be good. Medical team thought I was going to be good. I'm not."
That sounds like Anthony Davis.
Gotten a little bit of heat in Mexico. MLS tweeted, built in MLS with a picture of Obed Vargas and Brian Gutierrez. Another guy who is built in the U.S. in Phoenix is Richie Ledesma. These guys are going to compete for the final roster.
They're copying your bit.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to say I'm on the forefront here, but
I think you were. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. I think that's your bit.
Watching these guys, and I think it's just very legitimate that these guys might help. When you see what Obed can do, recovering the ball with his passing, maybe that's kind of the same thing as Marcel Ruiz. So maybe that's not he's got to compete for a roster spot, but I think he's right there in the mix. Ledesma with right back spot really up in there. In the attack is another option really late on the scene. Right now, I wouldn't predict that he makes it, but if he keeps doing it with Chivas, what he did in those first 4 games, it's like he's going to be back in March, and from there, who knows what happens. The issue, Armand, is that Javier Aguirre has liked to play this 4-3-3 with Edson as the holding midfielder, two-way mid and a forward. Brian Gutierrez doesn't play that way. Kevin Castaneda doesn't play that way. A lot of these younger, good attackers don't play that way. So do you modify the formation? Do you change things up that drastically before the World Cup? I guess Pochettino did, but you don't think Aguirre would?
I mean, it's really risky to do so right now, especially with kind of the tactical identity that you put into place. Pochettino changed it. He tweaked it, I think late last year, which is a little bit more time. I think it was October window. Yeah, September. September. What it was. You don't want to tweak it just for one player. But again, you're kind of limiting, the player's ability to be involved in the setup because, again, I don't think they expected Gutierrez to be ready to go, etc. So for me, I wouldn't try to change it that much from a tactical perspective, especially when you have, 5 months to the World Cup?
Who is Mexico playing in March, by the way?
Same teams, Belgium, Portugal. Portugal at the Azteca, first reopening of the Azteca, and then Belgium and Chicago. I agree with you, Armand, and I don't think Aguirre will because I think he's a conservative person by nature, that he's a manager who doesn't want to totally rock the boat. But it's not just Gutierrez that could benefit from a switch to even like a 4-4-2, but with a second striker and a main striker, Julian Quinones, who I did a video about on Instagram and TikTok, like he's scoring goals like crazy as a center forward in the Saudi league, but he used to play as the second striker at Atlas, and they won back-to-back championships. Alexis Vega, he's never popped with the Mexico national team, in part because he gets played as a winger, but he's actually better floating behind, creating things. So I wouldn't be totally shocked to see El Vasco switch things up a little bit in these March games, but you're right. There's really not a lot of time before the World Cup.
Wrapping it up this week, and for those of you watching on YouTube, thanks for sticking through the little bit of technical difficulty there. My connection is not great, so for some reason, but it seems to have reestablished itself much better.
Like the driver on my street.
Yeah, like the guy driving on your icy street right now. So good stuff all around. But yeah, so last segment today, we were going to talk about MLS announced on Monday a deal that they are leaning into the trading space, not the gambling space, the trading space, with an official deal with Polymarket. And for those who do not follow this too closely, the way, Polymarket, these types of things allow you to basically bet on anything, and you're buying shares of outcomes rather than, oh, I'm betting against a house that the Mavericks will win tomorrow. You have odds and you are buying shares versus another person, and they are buying, it's kind of peer to peer rather than just a house setting odds, right? And we don't need to get into the super nuance of it today, but we haven't really seen gambling seriously infiltrate itself into MLS ads like we do with the NBA and the NHL, where there seems to be a DraftKings logo or a FanDuel logo on just about everything. We haven't seen that as much in MLS, for better or for worse, right? I don't want to talk too much about kind of the deal itself, but what this deal brings in MLS, this is a space that I live in a lot. MLS trying to appeal to gamblers and to bettors, and press releases and different people talking about this, saying, hey, this brings more engaged fans. This will grow our fan base. This will bring in more new fans to MLS. I think there's a lot of reality to that, guys. And I think that MLS wanting to get people to say, hey, I've been on this different show before with these people who do a lot of MLB, NBA, NHL betting. They told me on the show, hey, have you guys ever watched this MLS 360 before? It's awesome. It's like Red Zone. It's so cool. And when you have bets on the game, it's so fun. You can see all these things, and it's like a Red Zone in the summer. These are people, they don't have a clue who Joao Klauss is or, Peter Musa or whatever. And these are guys saying, hey, this is awesome. This is a good product.
Now they will because of Polymarket?
That's the question. And here, the other thing.
My answer is no.
What will be a bigger issue, guys, and this is the topic I wanted to bring into this, is when you bring gambling into MLS and they lean into it, there are other things that gamblers and bettors expect. And that is information about the games that they are trying to bet on. Guys, is it easy to find information day to day? If FC Dallas is playing San Jose, is it easy to find information on who is going to play in that game? What are the stats, et cetera, right now, Armand? And they just pulled away from Football Reference every single Opta stat that we could use as well. Where's this going to go?
It's like the lack of information when it comes to, like, forget the gambling space, just overall, like when you're trying to analyze the team as a whole. I mean, last year there was, I think, several moments, again, we're in Dallas, so we're maybe a little bit biased towards like news towards FC Dallas, but it felt like they were straight out lying on the injury reports. Just like things were just completely just popping up out of random, etc. Like it was just like, what is going on here? And there is a deficiency of information like that we struggle to see as a whole. And I know MLS has kind of gone through availability reports; those aren't reliable for whatever reason. Come out. And you've seen them, D-Rob. You're closer to that than I and me and John have been.
Yes, I'm trying to create content around MLS betting, and I can't get an injury report until 12 hours before a game. That's not realistic. And I think that if MLS really wants to embrace this space, the other thing they need to do is embrace local reporting, local independent reporting that is still covered by the league, which has been the case in the past.
When I was a beat writer for the Dallas Morning News, covering FC Dallas for the local press, I was often in a difficult situation because I would go to the training, see a player not playing the day before the game, or see a player not getting on the bus, and a coach would maybe ask me, hey, could you not put this information out there because we don't know if player X is going to play for whoever, the Rapids, this weekend. Why should they know that player Y is not going to play for us? But as a reporter, my obligation is to the audience and to the truth. So, there were different negotiations that happened. Though, there's no reason that a local reporter should be in that position, but it was the reality that like certain teams had no coverage, and I was covering FCB, which now has a bit of a lack of coverage. There's still some great independent outlets doing their thing.
And by the way, not meaning to throw any shade on any local reporters. I don't think
any reporters would say that. I think like what you're saying is like, look, a lot of the local reporters are like trying to balance like other jobs or being, hey, I got to get my kid to school. I mean, not that NBA reporters don't have to get their kids to school, but like when you are able to dedicate your full-time job to it, you figure other solutions out because you have to be at practice and you have to get this report out. I think right now it sounds, Daniel, to me like college sports where like kind of everyone is making their own rules and the bettors know that going in. But then you also have this sort of vacuum to where like in my CONCACAF experience, I can say that's where match manipulation can creep in, right? Sure. Like if people don't have the information, they don't know what's going on, they don't know who these players are, they don't know this guy's actually injured or not or what have you, all of a sudden someone can go in and get in someone's ear and you can create a problem. I think that's what I would like to see, kind of matching this deal, that this deal be announced, and in the same way the league remind people of their safeguards of the situation they have against match manipulation, the hotline that they have, and MLS has a safeguard in the fact that they pay well. I mean, that's actually one of the biggest things. But there's still cases of spot fixing or manipulation that are concerning, even in a league as transparent and well-paying as MLS. So I'm not saying that like signing a deal with Polymarket leads you down the primrose path to match manipulation. I just would like the league to be as exuberant about its controls as it is about this deal.
Well, and to their credit, in the Front Office Sports article about it, there is a quote from an MLS official that says, hey, we are already thinking about these things and saying we're not going to allow bets on players to get yellow cards, which is one point of manipulation that has certainly happened in the past, or unders on shots, which let me tell you, you can't bet on that. So that is not actually something you can really bet on. But a lot of the different things that individual players can control. So credit to MLS on that. They are forward thinking on that. I think I just want to use this as a plea to say, hey, if you want to lean into this, I think it's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing to say we can grow our league and grow interest in it. What we all agree is a good product. We wouldn't be doing a podcast on MLS and American soccer each week if we didn't love it. We get together. Yeah, we get together and watch the games. We're talking about, the different roster moves and people are learning the different things and, cash for deals. Look at how this is changing the league. But if I can't go into a game if I can't sit down on Friday and look at a game and be able to make an informed decision on who is going to play, and suddenly a forward just doesn't show up, could you imagine in an NFL game if a starting quarterback, there was no news about it throughout the week? I mean, one example I think of is like Sam Darnold with the Seahawks. There was a question about like, he hasn't practiced all week. Will he play? And people were kind of freaking out. That was a playoff game, but 2, he played and he was fine. Could you imagine if Peter Musa is, and this has happened plenty of times, take it from me who tracks this stuff, starting players, important players, designated players, are not on the injury report. Well, an injury report doesn't come out until Friday evening. They're not on there, and then they just magically don't play. Or they're listed as questionable, and they didn't travel. Where that's not a question.
That's where I think that the quote unquote traveling roster, or for home teams, the game day squad. If you have this has to be out by 11 a.m. the day before the game. And then you can say, we put Musa on. We didn't know if he played. He didn't play. We weren't fiddling with it. And the league can find people just like, NFL, NHL, NBA will sometimes say, hey, you were being a little creative with the rules. And those are discussions, right? I think that would solve a lot of the issues. That's what I sort of advocated for when I was in those situations as the FCD beat writer. Man, if we could just if the team put out the traveling squad at a certain time the day before the game, then it would be a much more level playing field because everyone knows these are the guys that you're going to choose from. Look, if you want to put a guy in there who has a broken leg and not tell anybody, your funeral. But like, I think like that would solve a lot of the issues we're talking about. But the macro issue, of course, is like almost a circle where it's like we need more interest, so more people are going to the trainings and getting paid to report, hey, this guy practiced today. Yep. And the league is saying Polymarket will drive this interest, maybe it's a circle I think much more skeptical than you, but I'm also a little less sort of friendly with the gambling.
It's like the thing. The initial reaction I saw is, how can MLS be in bed with like a I guess a prediction gambling, whatever you want to call it, like company. And again,
And the only other league that has a deal is like this is the NHL.
Exactly, and again,
give
I
it
think
give it like 3 weeks and we'll see.
yeah,
We'll see.
like again, I think the idea of leaning into it makes sense because it's going to happen whether you like it or not. Like
Right.
there's going to be bets on it whether you like it or not. So you want to get ahead of it to a degree. I just sometimes like when you're reading between the lines, MLS already isn't like doing the right things. I would say, like, again, what I mean doing the right things is what we talked about with the availability reports, etc. Where it's like those things should have already been levels to begin with. Will this bring a wave of change? I don't know, because MLS honestly isn't necessarily has a best reputation being transparent when it comes to these things. They need to be, but again, to me, it's kind of a difficult question. And we see the DraftKings stuff kind of plastered all over with Kevin Egan. I mean, before every game, who's your DraftKings score or whatever it is going to be?
Kevin Egan?
It was Kevin Egan on the 360.
No,
like,
but I was saying, was that your impression of him?
I'm not.
That was a terrible impression of him. I
I'm
can't
not
do
doing
it. I
an
can't do an
impression either.
accent.
I love Kevin, but I don't.
I love him. He's
that
a good
impression
guy.
of him. I mean, sell out to it or don't. You know.
Hopefully the marketing money that MLS gets from this trickles down a little bit to creating more
from this or
content that will
Walmart.
inform. That would be fantastic.
I'm not a trickle down believer, my man.
Yeah, me either.
Well, that'll trickle down to the end of our show today. So thank you for listening, guys. Next week we will have CONCACAF Champions Cup to preview and predictions. So that will be fun. So we will get into it next week. Thank you guys for listening.